Transgender man denied entry to hotel, then returns owning the entire chain. How will this story escalate? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. Ethan adjusted his tie as he stepped out of the taxi in front of the luxurious Horizon Hotel. The neon sign above the grand entrance flickered softly, casting a warm glow over the polished glass doors. He took a deep breath, smoothing his jacket, and grabbed his suitcase. It had been a long day of travel, and all he wanted was to check in, take a shower, and prepare for tomorrow's business meeting, the biggest of his career so far. The hotel lobby was bustling with activity. Guests in formal attire chatted near the grand piano while staff members rushed to and fro, offering drinks and assisting with luggage. Ethan smiled faintly as he approached the front desk, feeling a sense of pride. This meeting was a culmination of years of hard work, and staying in such an upscale hotel felt like a small reward for his efforts. The receptionist, a young man named Bradley, glanced up as Ethan approached. Bradley's demeanor shifted almost imperceptibly as Ethan handed over his ID and credit card. "Good evening," Ethan said politely. "I have a reservation under the name Ethan Carter." Bradley's eyes flicked to Ethan's ID, then back to his face. A subtle frown creased his forehead, and his previously neutral expression hardened. He glanced down at his computer, typing slowly. He muttered. "Just a moment." Ethan waited patiently, though he couldn't help but notice the coldness in Bradley's tone. The receptionist continued typing, his lips pressed into a thin line. Finally, Bradley looked up, his expression indifferent. "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have any rooms available." Ethan blinked in surprise. "That can't be right. I made the reservation weeks ago and even confirmed it yesterday." Bradley shrugged, his tone clipped. "We've been overbooked. Happens sometimes. There's nothing I can do." Ethan frowned, his exhaustion giving way to frustration. "I don't understand. I have a confirmation email. Can't you check again?" Bradley let out a small sigh, clearly annoyed, and typed a few more keys. After a moment, he shook his head. "Nope. No rooms available. You'll have to find accommodations elsewhere." The words stung, but it wasn't just the rejection that bothered Ethan. It was the way Bradley was looking at him. Cold, dismissive, judging. Ethan had encountered looks like that before, and he recognized the subtle shift in tone that came with it. He tried to stay calm, forcing a polite smile. "I'd appreciate it if you could check with your manager. There must be some sort of mistake." Bradley's frown deepened. "I told you, there's no vacancy. I don't know what else you want me to do." He gestured to a small sign on the desk that read "No vacancy" as if it explained everything. Ethan opened his mouth to protest, but the receptionist cut him off. "Look, sir, if you want, I can recommend a motel nearby. It's not fancy, but it'll do." A wave of humiliation washed over Ethan. He glanced around, noticing a few guests watching the interaction with curiosity. His chest tightened, and he felt a familiar mix of anger and sadness bubbling beneath the surface. He wanted to demand answers, to fight back, but he was too tired to make a scene. "Fine," he said quietly, slipping his ID and credit card back into his wallet. "I'll figure something out." Bradley nodded curtly, already turning his attention to the next guest in line. Ethan picked up his suitcase and walked out of the lobby, his shoulders stiff with tension. The cool night air hit him as he stepped onto the sidewalk, but it did little to soothe the sting of what had just happened. He found a bench a few steps away and sat down, his mind racing. This wasn't the first time he'd faced discrimination, but it didn't make it any easier. He thought about the way Bradley had looked at his ID, the subtle shift in his demeanor. It was clear the receptionist had made assumptions that had nothing to do with Ethan's reservation or the hotel's availability. Ethan took out his phone and began searching for nearby accommodations. A small motel popped up a few miles away, and he called to confirm they had a room available. The clerk on the other end sounded cheerful and welcoming, a stark contrast to Bradley's frosty attitude. Ethan booked the room and hailed a cab, determined not to let the experience ruin his night. The motel was modest but clean, with a neon vacancy sign glowing in the window. The woman at the front desk greeted Ethan warmly, her smile genuine. "Welcome, Mr. Carter." "We're glad to have you." Ethan thanked her and took his key, heading to his room. It wasn't the luxury he had anticipated, but it was a safe place to rest. As he set his suitcase down and collapsed onto the bed, the events of the evening replayed in his mind. The humiliation, the anger, the nagging feeling that he should have said more. He stared at the ceiling, his thoughts drifting to the years he had spent building himself up, overcoming obstacle after obstacle. Transitioning had been one of the hardest but most rewarding journeys of his life. He had faced rejection, ignorance, and prejudice, but he had always pushed forward. Tonight's experience was a painful reminder that the world still had a long way to go. But Ethan wasn't the type to wallow in self-pity. He pulled out his laptop and began drafting an email to the hotel's corporate office, detailing the incident and requesting an explanation. His words were measured but firm, recounting the interaction with Bradley and emphasizing the discrimination he believed he had faced. When he finished, he hit send and closed his laptop, feeling a small sense of relief. He had taken the first step toward holding the hotel accountable. Whether they responded or not, he had made his voice heard. The next morning, Ethan woke early, refreshed and ready to tackle his business meeting. He dressed sharply, his confidence returning as he prepared his presentation. He wasn't going to let the events of the previous night overshadow the opportunity ahead. The meeting was a resounding success. Ethan's pitch was met with enthusiasm, and by the end of the day, he had secured a deal that would take his company to the next level. As he left the conference room, his heart swelled with pride. He had proven himself once again, and no amount of discrimination could take that away from him. But the incident at the hotel still lingered in the back of his mind. When he returned to the motel that evening, he checked his email, hoping for a response from the hotel's corporate office. To his disappointment, there was nothing. No apology, no acknowledgement, just silence. Ethan's jaw tightened as he stared at the empty inbox. He had hoped the company would take his complaint seriously, but it was clear they had no intention of addressing the issue. For a moment, he felt defeated. But then, a spark of determination flared within him. If they wouldn't listen, he would make them listen. Ethan spent the next few days reaching out to contacts in his network, sharing his story and gathering advice. One of his mentors, a seasoned entrepreneur named Helen, was particularly supportive. "This isn't just about you, Ethan," she said during one of their calls. "This is about everyone who's ever been denied respect and dignity because of who they are. If the system won't change on its own, then you need to be the one to change it." Her words stuck with him, igniting a bold idea. What if he could do more than just demand an apology? What if he could take control of the situation, literally? It was a daunting thought, but the more he considered it, the more it made sense. He had the skills, the drive, and the connections. And most importantly, he had a vision. Ethan began researching the hotel chain, diving into its history, financial reports, and corporate structure. He discovered that the company had been struggling in recent years, its outdated policies and lack of innovation causing it to fall behind competitors. It was the perfect opportunity for someone with fresh ideas and a commitment to change. The plan was ambitious, but Ethan was no stranger to taking risks. He reached out to investors, pitched his vision, and began assembling a team of like-minded individuals who believed in creating inclusive spaces. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but Ethan was ready to fight for what he believed in. This wasn't just about owning a hotel chain. It was about transforming it, turning it into a symbol of progress and equality. And he wouldn't stop until he succeeded. Ethan sat at his desk late into the night, his room illuminated only by the soft glow of his laptop screen. His research into the hotel chain had revealed more than he expected. The company was far larger than he initially thought, with properties in multiple cities. However, its financial struggles were glaringly apparent. Outdated practices, poor customer service, and a failure to modernize had left it lagging behind its competitors. This was an opportunity, Ethan realized, not just to address his personal experience but to create systemic change. But taking on something this monumental would require resources far beyond what he currently had. He needed investors, people who shared his vision and were willing to take a chance on his plan. The next morning, Ethan met with Helen, his mentor, at a cafe in the heart of the city. Helen was an older woman with sharp eyes and a commanding presence, someone who had built her own empire from scratch and had a reputation for mentoring promising entrepreneurs. Ethan laid out his idea, detailing his experience at the hotel and his plan to acquire the chain. Helen listened intently, her fingers steepled under her chin. "You're not thinking small," she said finally, a hint of admiration in her voice. "But this isn't just a business move, Ethan. It's a statement. Are you prepared for the backlash that might come with it?" Ethan nodded. "I faced worse. And this isn't just about me, it's about making sure no one else has to go through what I did." Helen smiled. "Good. Because this is going to be a fight. You'll need investors, and not just for the money. You'll need people who believe in your vision and can open doors for you." She reached into her bag and pulled out a notebook, scribbling down a list of names. "These are people I think you should talk to. Some of them are investors, others are activists and business leaders who can help you navigate this space. But remember, it's not enough to have a vision, you need a solid plan to back it up." Ethan took the notebook, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you, Helen. I won't let you down." Over the next few weeks, Ethan threw himself into the project. He prepared detailed presentations, outlining his vision for transforming the hotel chain into a leader in inclusivity and modern hospitality. He highlighted the financial benefits of his plan, showing how updating the chain's policies and practices could attract a broader customer base and increase profitability. But it wasn't just about the numbers. Ethan shared his personal story, using his experience as a powerful example of why change was needed. He emphasized the importance of creating spaces where everyone felt welcome, regardless of their identity. The responses were mixed. Some investors were intrigued, recognizing the potential for growth and the increasing demand for inclusive businesses. Others were skeptical, doubting Ethan's ability to take on such a large project or dismissing the importance of his mission. Ethan faced each rejection with determination, refusing to let it discourage him. He knew this wasn't going to be easy, but he also knew he was fighting for something bigger than himself. One day, Ethan received a call from one of Helen's contacts, a prominent venture capitalist named Marcus Reed. Marcus was known for taking risks on unconventional ideas, and he had a reputation for supporting underdogs. "I've heard about your project," Marcus said, his voice calm and measured. "I think it has potential, but I'm not convinced yet. Let's meet and see if you can change my mind." Ethan's heart raced as he set up the meeting. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for, the chance to secure the funding he needed to take his plan to the next level. When the day of the meeting arrived, Ethan dressed sharply, his confidence bolstered by the weeks of preparation he had put in. He met Marcus in a sleek conference room, where the venture capitalist sat with a small team of advisors. Ethan began his presentation, speaking with passion and precision. He detailed the challenges facing the hotel chain and his plan to address them, from modernizing the facilities to implementing comprehensive inclusivity training for staff. He highlighted the market trends that supported his vision, showing how the chain could tap into a growing demand for inclusive and progressive businesses. But it was when Ethan shared his personal story that the room fell silent. He described the humiliation he had felt that night at the Horizon Hotel, the way he had been dismissed and judged simply for being himself. "This isn't just about a hotel chain," Ethan said, his voice steady but emotional. "It's about creating a world where no one has to feel like they don't belong. Where businesses don't just tolerate diversity, they celebrate it. And I believe this chain can lead the way." When he finished, there was a moment of silence before Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "You're ambitious, Ethan. I like that. But this is a big risk, and you're asking for a lot of money. Why should I bet on you?" Ethan met his gaze, his voice unwavering. "Because I won't stop until this succeeds. I've faced challenges my entire life, and I've overcome every single one of them. This is no different. I believe in this project, and I believe in what it stands for. If you give me a chance, I promise I won't let you down." Marcus studied him for a long moment before nodding. "All right, I'm in." With Marcus's backing, Ethan's plan began to take shape. The funding allowed him to begin negotiations with the hotel chain's board, many of whom were eager to sell given the company's financial struggles. The process was long and grueling, with endless meetings, legal hurdles, and moments of doubt. But Ethan's determination never wavered. He knew what he was fighting for and he refused to give up. Finally, after months of negotiations, the deal was finalized. Ethan Carter became the majority owner of the Horizon hotel chain. The news spread quickly, shocking the industry and the public alike. Articles were written about Ethan's bold move, with headlines highlighting his identity as a transgender man and his mission to transform the chain. Some praised his vision, while others criticized him, claiming his plans were unrealistic or unnecessary. Ethan ignored the noise, focusing instead on the work ahead. He assembled a team of experts to help implement the changes he had envisioned, from updating the chain's facilities to overhauling its policies and training programs. One of his first actions as owner was to visit the very hotel where he had been denied entry. The staff was visibly nervous as Ethan walked into the lobby, his presence commanding but calm. Bradley, the receptionist who had turned him away, was still working behind the desk. His face paled as he recognized Ethan, his usual arrogance replaced by a mix of fear and guilt. Ethan approached the counter, his expression unreadable. "Good evening," he said, his tone polite but firm. "I believe we've met before." Bradley stammered, unable to form a coherent response. Ethan continued, his voice steady. "I'm here to announce some changes. This hotel, and every property in the Horizon chain, will be implementing new policies to ensure that every guest is treated with dignity and respect. Discrimination of any kind will not be tolerated." He paused, letting his words sink in. "That includes staff training, new hiring practices, and a zero-tolerance policy for behavior like what I experienced here." Bradley swallowed hard, his gaze dropping to the desk. Ethan studied him for a moment before adding, "If you're willing to learn and grow, there's a place for you here. But if not, this may not be the right job for you." Bradley nodded quickly. I understand. I'll do better." Ethan gave a small nod, then turned to address the rest of the staff. "This isn't just about rules. It's about creating a culture where everyone feels welcome. I hope you'll join me in making that happen." As he left the hotel that evening, Ethan felt a sense of closure. He had turned a moment of pain into a movement for change, and he wasn't done yet. Ethan stood outside the Horizon Hotel, the night air cool against his skin. The golden glow of the building's lights cast soft reflections on the pavement, and the murmur of activity inside buzzed faintly. This was the same hotel where he had once been humiliated, but now, the narrative was his to shape. He adjusted his suit, took a deep breath, and walked back inside. The staff had assembled in the main conference room for the first official meeting under Ethan's leadership. The space was filled with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Many employees had heard rumors about the sweeping changes Ethan planned to implement. Some were excited, others nervous, but all were eager to hear what the new owner had to say. Ethan stepped to the front of the room, his calm but commanding presence immediately drawing attention. He let his gaze sweep across the crowd before speaking. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Ethan Carter, and as of this week, I am the majority owner of the Horizon hotel chain." A murmur rippled through the room. Some employees already knew, but hearing it directly from Ethan carried more weight. "I want to start by saying this. I'm not here to criticize the work you've done or to suggest that everything needs to change. But I am here because I believe in the potential of this company and its people. And I believe we can do better, not just for our guests, but for each other." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Some of you may have heard about the incident that brought me here. For those who haven't, let me be clear. I was denied entry to one of our hotels because of who I am. It wasn't about a lack of rooms or a mistake in the system, it was discrimination. And that's not something I'll ever tolerate in an organization I lead." The room fell silent, the weight of Ethan's words palpable. He continued, his tone steady but firm. "From this day forward, Horizon Hotels will stand for inclusivity, respect, and excellence. That means new policies, new training programs, and a renewed commitment to treating every guest and every employee with dignity." He gestured to a screen behind him where the words Horizon Hotel, a place for everyone, appeared in bold letters. "This is our new mission. To be a place where people from all walks of life feel welcome, valued, and safe." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Ethan worked closely with his leadership team to implement the changes he had promised. Inclusivity training became mandatory for all staff, focusing on unconscious bias, cultural sensitivity, and effective communication. The company's hiring practices were overhauled to prioritize diversity, and a new code of conduct was introduced with clear guidelines on acceptable behavior. Ethan also launched an anonymous feedback system, encouraging employees to share their thoughts and experiences without fear of retaliation. He wanted to create a culture of openness and accountability where everyone felt empowered to speak up. At the same time, Ethan focused on modernizing the hotel chain's facilities. He invested in upgrades to the rooms, improved the technology systems, and partnered with local artists to bring unique, regionally inspired decor to each property. The goal was to make Horizon Hotels a leader in both inclusivity and innovation. One afternoon, as Ethan was reviewing reports in his office, his assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Carter, there's someone here to see you," she said. "He says it's important." Ethan glanced at the clock. He didn't have any appointment scheduled, but he nodded. "Send him in." The door opened, and Bradley, the receptionist who had denied Ethan entry, stepped inside. His posture was tense, his hands clutching a folder tightly. "Mr. Carter," he began, his voice hesitant. "Thank you for seeing me." Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying Bradley carefully. "What can I do for you?" he asked, his tone neutral. Bradley hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I wanted to apologize for how I treated you that night. I was wrong, and there's no excuse for it. I judged you based on assumptions instead of treating you with the respect you deserved." Ethan remained silent, letting Bradley continue. "Since you took over, I've been attending the training sessions, and they've opened my eyes to how my biases affected the way I did my job. I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to do better." Ethan regarded him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally he spoke. "It takes courage to admit when you've been wrong. And it takes even more courage to commit to change. I appreciate you coming to me, Bradley." Bradley's shoulders relaxed slightly, and he nodded. "Thank you, sir. I'll keep working to earn back the trust one lost." Ethan offered a small smile. "Good. Because change doesn't happen overnight. But if you're willing to put in the effort, I believe people can grow." The transformation of the Horizon Hotel chain began to attract attention, both within the industry and beyond. Articles were written about Ethan's bold leadership and the company's commitment to inclusivity. Guests praised the welcoming atmosphere, and employee morale improved significantly. One evening, Ethan attended a gala hosted by the National Hospitality Association. The event was a gathering of industry leaders, and Horizon Hotels had been nominated for the Innovative Excellence Award. As Ethan mingled with other attendees, he couldn't help but reflect on how far he had come since that fateful night at the hotel. When the time came to announce the award, Ethan's heart raced as the presenter took the stage. This year's Innovative Excellence Award goes to a company that has not only modernized its operations but has also set a new standard for inclusivity and leadership. Please join me in congratulating Horizon Hotels and their CEO, Ethan Carter. The room erupted into applause as Ethan made his way to the stage. He accepted the award, his hands trembling slightly as he held the crystal trophy. As the applause died down, he stepped up to the microphone. "Thank you," he began, his voice steady. "This award is not just for me. It's for every person who believed in this vision, who worked tirelessly to make it a reality. And it's for every guest and employee who deserves to feel welcome, respected, and valued." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the audience. Change is never easy. It requires us to confront uncomfortable truths, to challenge our assumptions, and to push beyond what we think is possible. But it's worth it, because when we create spaces where everyone belongs, we create a better world, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. The audience rose to their feet, their applause echoing through the hall. Ethan stepped off the stage, his heart full. This wasn't just a victory for him. It was a victory for the values he had fought so hard to uphold. As the years went on, Horizon Hotels continued to thrive under Ethan's leadership. The chain became a model for inclusivity and innovation, inspiring other companies to follow suit. Ethan used his platform to advocate for equality and social justice, speaking at conferences and mentoring young entrepreneurs who wanted to make a difference. But for Ethan, the most rewarding moments were the personal ones, the emails from guests who felt seen and valued, the employees who thanked him for creating a culture of respect, and the communities that had been enriched by the changes he had implemented. One day, as Ethan walked through the lobby of the original Horizon Hotel, he paused to admire a plaque mounted on the wall. In honor of those who turn challenges into opportunities and create spaces where everyone belongs. Horizon Hotels, a place for everyone. Ethan smiled, a deep sense of pride and gratitude washing over him. He had turned pain into purpose, transforming not just a company but an entire industry. And he knew that this was only the beginning. Ethan leaned back in his office chair, staring out the window at the bustling city skyline. The journey that had brought him here felt almost surreal. From being denied entry to a hotel to owning and transforming an entire chain, he had turned a moment of humiliation into a mission for change. And yet, he knew his work was far from over. The Horizon Hotels initiative, a place for everyone, had become a symbol of progress in the hospitality industry. Ethan often received letters and emails from guests thanking him for the inclusive atmosphere the hotels now offered. Many shared deeply personal stories about how they had felt seen, respected, and welcomed for the first time in their lives. One email in particular stood out. It was from a transgender teenager named Jamie, who had stayed at a Horizon Hotel with their family during a cross-country trip. Jamie wrote about how nervous they had been to travel, fearing judgment and discrimination. But at Horizon Hotels, they had experienced nothing but kindness and acceptance. "Your hotel made me feel like I belong," Jamie wrote. "It was the first time I didn't have to hide who I am. Thank you for creating a space where people like me can feel safe." Ethan reread the email, his heart swelling with emotion. This was why he had fought so hard, why he had refused to give up even when the odds were stacked against him. It wasn't just about running a business, it was about creating a legacy, a world where everyone could feel valued and respected. A few days later, Ethan visited one of the chain's newly renovated properties to attend a staff meeting. The hotel had undergone significant changes, with modern decor, accessible facilities, and a staff trained in inclusivity practices. The energy in the room was palpable as employees gathered to discuss their progress and share ideas for the future. Ethan listened intently as team members spoke about their experiences. One housekeeper, Maria, shared how the new training programs had transformed her approach to customer service. "I used to think it was enough to just smile and do my job," she said. "But now, I understand how important it is to really listen to our guests, to make them feel heard. It's made me better at my job, and it's made me proud to work here." Another employee, Jacob, talked about how the company's diversity initiatives had inspired him to pursue a management position. "Before, I didn't think someone like me could move up in this industry," he admitted. "But now, I see that Horizon Hotels values people for who they are, not just their titles. I'm excited about what's next." Ethan smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride. These were the moments that mattered most, the ripple effects of change, the lives impacted by his vision. As the meeting concluded, Ethan took a moment to address the staff. "I want to thank each of you for the work you've done to make Horizon Hotels what it is today," he said, his voice steady. "This isn't just my vision, it's ours. Every one of you plays a role in creating a space where people feel safe, respected, and valued." He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the room. "We've come a long way, but there's still more to do. Change doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't end with one person or one company. It's a journey, and I'm grateful to have all of you on this journey with me." The room erupted into applause, and Ethan felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. He had always believed in the power of collective action, and seeing it come to life was nothing short of extraordinary. That evening, Ethan returned to his hotel suite, the city lights twinkling outside his window. He sat down with a notebook, jotting down ideas for the future. He wanted to expand the place for everyone initiative beyond the hotel chain, creating partnerships with other businesses and organizations to promote inclusivity on a larger scale. But more than that, he wanted to share his story, not just to inspire others, but to show them what was possible when they refused to let adversity define them. He began drafting the outline for a book, tentatively titled Turning the Key: How One Moment Sparked a Movement. In it, he planned to share his journey, from his struggles as a transgender man to his rise as a leader and advocate for change. As he wrote, memories of his past flooded back, moments of doubt, resilience, and triumph. He thought about the people who had supported him along the way: his mentor Helen, his investors, his team, and even the employees who had initially resisted his vision but eventually embraced it. He also thought about the night that had started it all, the night he had been turned away from the Horizon Hotel. What had once been a moment of pain had become a catalyst for transformation, not just for him but for countless others. Ethan closed his notebook, a sense of calm settling over him. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain: he would continue to fight for a world where everyone belonged. Several months later, Horizon Hotels hosted its first annual Inclusivity in Action conference, bringing together leaders from across industries to share ideas and best practices for creating more equitable workplaces. Ethan was the keynote speaker, and as he took the stage, the audience rose to their feet in applause. He spoke about the importance of empathy, resilience, and the power of turning challenges into opportunities. He shared stories of the people who had inspired him, the lessons he had learned, and the vision he had for the future. As leaders, it's our responsibility to create spaces where everyone can thrive, he said, his voice strong and clear. It's not just good for business, it's good for humanity. And when we work together, there's nothing we can't achieve. The applause that followed was thunderous, and Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had turned his pain into purpose, his adversity into advocacy. And he knew this was only the beginning. As he left the stage, he was approached by Jamie, the transgender teenager who had written him the heartfelt email months earlier. Jamie's eyes sparkled with excitement as they shook Ethan's hand. "You changed my life," they said, their voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you for everything you've done." Ethan smiled, his own eyes glistening. "You're the reason I do this," he said. "Never stop being yourself. The world needs you." That night, as Ethan sat in his hotel room, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He had faced countless obstacles, but each one had made him stronger. He had learned that change wasn't just about fixing what was broken, it was about building something better. And as he looked out at the city lights, he felt a profound sense of hope. The world wasn't perfect, but it was full of possibilities. And he was ready to keep fighting for a future where everyone had a place to belong. Ethan stood in the conference room of the newest Horizon Hotel property, surrounded by members of his leadership team. The hotel was still under renovation, with scaffolding lining the walls and the faint hum of drills echoing through the space. This particular property, located in the heart of a bustling metropolitan city, was the crown jewel of the chain's rebranding efforts. "This hotel represents everything we've been working toward," Ethan began, his voice steady and clear. "It's not just another property, it's a symbol of what Horizon Hotels stands for: inclusivity, innovation, and excellence." The team nodded in agreement, their notebooks open as they jotted down ideas and tasks. Ethan gestured to a blueprint spread across the table, highlighting the changes that would make this hotel stand out. From fully accessible rooms and gender-neutral bathrooms to a dedicated meditation space for guests of all faiths, every detail had been designed with inclusivity in mind. "Let's talk about the grand opening," Ethan said, turning his attention to the marketing director. "I want this event to showcase not just the hotel but the values we've built this brand on. It should be a celebration of diversity and community." The marketing director, a sharp-witted woman named Carla, nodded. "We've already reached out to local artists and performers. We're planning a cultural showcase that highlights the city's diversity. We'll also invite leaders from the LGBTQ+ community and other advocacy groups." Ethan smiled, pleased with the direction. "Perfect. Make sure we involve the employees as well. This is their accomplishment as much as ours. I want them to feel proud of what they've helped create." As the meeting continued, Ethan's mind drifted briefly to how far they had come. The rebranding of Horizon Hotels hadn't been easy. There had been resistance, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But seeing the transformation of the chain, both physically and culturally, made every challenge worthwhile. Later that evening, Ethan returned to his office, a quiet space lined with bookshelves and framed photos. He sank into his chair and opened his laptop, checking the progress reports from various properties. Most of the feedback was positive, with guests praising the improvements and employees expressing pride in their work. One report caught Ethan's eye. It was a letter from a guest who had stayed at one of the hotels with their family. The guest, a single father with 2 children, described how nervous he had been about traveling with his son, who used a wheelchair. He recounted how the hotel staff had gone above and beyond to ensure their stay was comfortable, from arranging an accessible room to providing a detailed guide of nearby attractions. "I've stayed at many hotels," the guest wrote, "but none have made us feel as welcome as Horizon Hotels. My son smiled more during this trip than I've seen in months. Thank you for creating a space where we felt truly valued." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat as he read the letter. This was why he had fought so hard to transform the company, not just to fix its flaws, but to create moments like this. He printed the letter and pinned it to the corkboard on his wall, alongside other notes and photos that reminded him of his mission. A week later, Ethan found himself back at the original Horizon Hotel, the site of the incident that had sparked his journey. The hotel had undergone significant changes since Ethan had taken over. The once dated decor had been replaced with sleek, modern furnishings, and the staff had undergone extensive training to align with the company's new values. Ethan walked through the lobby, his presence commanding yet approachable. Guests and employees alike greeted him warmly, and he took the time to stop and chat with several of them. As he approached the front desk, he noticed Bradley, the receptionist who had once denied him entry, working diligently. Bradley looked up and saw Ethan, a flicker of nervousness crossing his face. But Ethan smiled, his expression kind. "How's it going, Bradley?" he asked. Bradley straightened, his voice steady. "It's going well, Mr. Carter. Thank you. I've been working on the new guest satisfaction initiatives, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive." Ethan nodded, pleased. "Good to hear. Keep up the great work." Bradley hesitated, then said, "Mr. Carter, I just want to thank you again for giving me a second chance. I know I didn't deserve it, but I've learned so much from this experience. I'm a better person because of it." Ethan's smile widened. "Everyone deserves a chance to grow, Bradley. What matters is that you took that chance and ran with it." As Ethan walked away, he felt a sense of closure. The man who had once treated him with disdain was now part of the change Ethan had worked so hard to create. It was a testament to the power of leadership and the belief that people could evolve when given the opportunity. As the grand opening of the new flagship Horizon Hotel approached, excitement buzzed throughout the company. Employees from across the chain were invited to attend, along with community leaders, media representatives, and other key stakeholders. The event was a dazzling affair, with live music, art installations, and speeches from prominent figures. Ethan took the stage toward the end of the evening, the spotlight casting a warm glow over him. "Good evening," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "When I stood in this room a year ago, I was a guest denied entry. Tonight, I stand before you as the owner of a hotel chain that has become a symbol of inclusivity and progress." He paused, letting his words resonate. "This journey has taught me that change isn't just possible, it's necessary. It's not enough to say we value diversity, we have to live it, breathe it, and embed it into everything we do." And that's what Horizon Hotels has done. The audience erupted into applause, and Ethan took a moment to compose himself before continuing. "This hotel, and every property in our chain, is a place where everyone belongs. Whether you're a guest, an employee, or a member of the community, you are welcome here." As he stepped off the stage, he was met with handshakes, hugs, and words of gratitude. The night was a resounding success, cementing Horizon Hotel's reputation as a leader in the hospitality industry. The next day, as Ethan walked through the flagship hotel, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every challenge, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt. He had turned a moment of discrimination into a movement for change, proving that adversity could be a catalyst for growth. As he stepped into the lobby, he noticed a small plaque mounted on the wall. Dedicated to those who dare to dream, who strive for change, and who believe in a better future. Horizon Hotels, a place for everyone. Ethan smiled, his heart full. The fight wasn't over, there was always more work to be done. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of pride. He had created something lasting, something meaningful. And he knew that this was just the beginning. A few months after the grand opening of the flagship Horizon Hotel, Ethan sat in his home office, reviewing the latest performance reports from across the chain. The numbers told a story of transformation. Occupancy rates had soared, customer satisfaction scores were at an all-time high, and revenue projections exceeded even the most optimistic estimates. But what stood out most were the testimonials. Countless messages from guests and employees alike, each one a testament to the power of inclusivity and vision. Ethan flipped through one particular report detailing the success of a pilot mentorship program for employees. The program paired junior staff members with seasoned mentors to help them develop their skills and advance their careers. One story caught his attention. A front desk clerk from a small-town property had recently been promoted to assistant manager thanks to the mentorship program. The clerk, a single mother named Rosa, had written a heartfelt letter thanking Ethan for creating opportunities she had never dreamed possible. "I used to think I was just a receptionist," Rosa had written. "But now I see that I'm capable of so much more. Thank you for believing in people like me." Ethan leaned back in his chair, a smile spreading across his face. Stories like Rosa's were the reason he had fought so hard to turn Horizon Hotels into more than just a business. It was a platform for change, a beacon of hope for those who had been overlooked or underestimated. That evening, Ethan attended a charity gala hosted by one of Horizon Hotels' community partners. The event aimed to raise funds for local LGBTQ+ youth organizations, a cause close to Ethan's heart. As he mingled with attendees, he felt a sense of pride knowing that his company was not just profiting but giving back in meaningful ways. During the event, Ethan was approached by a young man named Malik, who introduced himself as a former Horizon Hotel guest. Malik explained that he had stayed at one of the chain's properties during a difficult time in his life, shortly after coming out to his family. "I was scared and unsure of what my future would look like," Malik said, his voice trembling slightly. "But staying at your hotel gave me a sense of safety and belonging. The staff was so kind, and for the first time in a while, I felt like I could breathe. I just wanted to thank you for creating a place like that." Ethan shook Malik's hand, his eyes glistening with emotion. "Thank you for sharing that with me, Malik. Your story means more to me than you know. You're exactly why I do this." Malik smiled, his expression filled with gratitude. "Keep doing what you're doing. It's making a difference." The next day, Ethan met with his executive team to discuss plans for the future. The agenda was packed with ambitious goals: expanding the mentorship program, introducing eco-friendly initiatives across all properties, and launching a scholarship fund for employees' children. Ethan had always believed in thinking big, and now that the company was thriving, he wanted to use its success to create even greater impact. As the meeting progressed, Carla, the marketing director, presented an idea for a new campaign. "We've been focusing on inclusivity, which has been amazing," she said. "But I think it's time to highlight something else: sustainability. Our guests care about the environment, and I think we can position Horizon Hotels as a leader in eco-conscious hospitality." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "I love it. Let's make it happen. Start by assessing where we can make the most significant improvements: energy efficiency, waste reduction, sourcing local and sustainable materials. This isn't just a marketing angle, it's a responsibility." Carla smiled. "I knew you'd say that. I'll have a detailed proposal ready by next week." As the weeks turned into months, Ethan's vision for the company continued to expand. Under his leadership, Horizon Hotels not only became a symbol of inclusivity but also a model for sustainability and corporate responsibility. The chain introduced solar panels at several properties, eliminated single-use plastics, and partnered with local farmers to source fresh, organic ingredients for their restaurants. The initiatives drew widespread praise, further cementing Horizon Hotels' reputation as a forward-thinking brand. But for Ethan, the real reward came from the people whose lives were touched by the company's work: employees who found new opportunities, guests who felt truly welcome, and communities that benefited from Horizon's commitment to giving back. One day, As Ethan was visiting a Horizon hotel in a small coastal town, he decided to take a walk along the beach. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the water, and the sound of waves crashing against the shore filled the air. It was a rare moment of solitude, a chance to reflect on everything he had accomplished. As he walked, he noticed a family playing in the sand, a father, a mother, and their young son. The boy, laughing joyfully, ran toward the water with a kite trailing behind him. Ethan smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. He thought back to the night he had been turned away from that hotel, the sting of humiliation still fresh in his memory. At the time, he couldn't have imagined that the experience would lead him here, to this moment of quiet triumph. He had taken that pain and turned it into purpose, creating something that would outlast him. Ethan sat down on a rock, watching as the boy's kite soared higher into the sky. He pulled out his notebook and began to write, jotting down thoughts for his book and ideas for the future. There was still so much to do, but for the first time in a long time, he felt content. A year later, Horizon Hotels celebrated its 50th anniversary with a grand event at its flagship property. The celebration was attended by employees, guests, community leaders, and industry professionals, all of whom had been touched by the company's transformation. Ethan stood on stage, addressing the crowd with a mixture of pride and humility. 50 years ago, this company was founded with a simple mission: to provide a place for people to stay. Today, that mission has evolved into something much greater. We are not just a hotel chain, we are a community, a family, a beacon of hope for anyone who has ever felt unwelcome. He paused, letting his words sink in. This journey has taught me that change is possible, no matter how insurmountable it may seem. It starts with one person, one idea, one moment of courage. And when we come together, we can create something truly extraordinary. The audience erupted into applause, and Ethan felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. As he stepped off the stage, he was met by his team, his friends, and his family, all of whom had been part of this incredible journey. That night, as the celebration continued, Ethan found himself standing in a quiet corner of the ballroom, watching as guests laughed, danced, and connected. He thought about everything it had taken to get here, the challenges, the setbacks, the victories, and he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This wasn't just the story of a hotel chain. It was the story of resilience, of transformation, of what was possible when one person refused to give up. As the night wore on, Ethan raised a glass in a quiet toast to the future. The fight for progress was never truly over, but for now, he allowed himself to bask in the glow of what he had built. Horizon Hotels was more than just a place for everyone. It was a legacy. And it was only the beginning.